Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Today our guest is New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli. Tom DiNapoli has an interesting career, starting at the age of 18 on the school board as an elected official, and then moving up to state assemblyman, and now he's a comptroller. Comptroller, thank you so much for coming, sir.
Raj, great to be with you, my friend.
Really appreciate it. I know you're a busy person, you've got a lot of responsibility on you, but you still took a time to come here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's my honor to be back with you.
Thank you. First, wanted to know a little bit about you, Comptroller. If you can tell us about you, that where did you start it, who was your mentor, and how did you start it in this world of politics?
The crazy world of politics. Got crazier as things have gone on. I've been very fortunate to have served in an elective position for a long time. And I started really in my teen years having an interest in politics, what was going on in the world. I came of age in the late 60s, early 70s here on Long Island. A lot happening, civil rights movement, environmental movement, women's movement, all these movements happening. Of course, the Vietnam War was a big issue back when I was in high school. And one of the big motivating involvements for me was trying to advocate for 18-year-olds to have the right to vote, because back then you had to be 21 to vote. 18 to buy a drink, 21 to vote. Now we've changed it, right? You're 21 to drink and 18 to vote. But the big issue really was, young men it applied to were subject to the draft. With a very unpopular war, and many of us said, well, we have no say in this. Shouldn't we have the right to vote? So 18-year-old vote came in, and what happened to me when I turned 18, I registered to vote, and I also chose to run for the Board of Education in my home community of Mineola.
At the age of 18?
At the age of 18.
Wow.
I was going to go to college locally at Hofstra, and there were some things we wanted to see change, we meaning myself and some of the other students. And while I was still a senior in high school, I ran for the Board of Education, and I had that unique experience of first time I voted for myself, which most people don't get to do, and I won that election. So what really started me was the good people of Mineola School District that took a chance on an 18-year-old at a time where that was certainly something very new. And it was serving on the Board of Education, as I did for 10 years, that really got me even more involved with the community issues. I became active in the Democratic Party, even though my family were all Republicans. And I ran for town office unsuccessfully back in the days when Democrats couldn't get elected to many positions here in Nassau County. But then in 1986, I had the chance to run for state assembly. And one of my mentors and a great role model for me was May Newberger, who served in the assembly for many years. You remember May? I remember her. She became town supervisor eventually.
Right.
Yeah. But she was in the assembly initially, and another great mentor and friend passed away not that long ago. It was Angelo Orazio, was also in the state assembly. So Bob Mrazek, another name from the past, who was a member of Congress, and I worked part-time on his staff. But I had been working in the private sector, actually. School board work, I was there for 10 years, but that's not a job in that sense, right? It's a service. But I worked at AT&T. And I liked working in the private sector, but I always had that interest in doing public service full time. So May Newberger retired from the assembly. I had the chance to run, and with great help was elected in 1986, served in the state assembly for 2 decades, did a lot of work, especially on environmental issues, education issues, many other issues. And then when my predecessor had to resign the controller's position because he got in a little bit of trouble, as you remember.
Right.
The legislature had to fill the vacancy, and it was, somewhat of a contentious process. But I got selected by a bipartisan vote of the legislature, and that's 2007. And all these years later, I'm still there, and the people of the state re-elected me again in 2018 with over 4 million votes. So I'd like to think we're doing something right, that people appreciate the work that I do. So for me, it's been a long path, but I think a path that I'm very proud of, and certainly I've enjoyed public service immensely. Very pleased with my career choice, and that the people have continued to have confidence in me. I couldn't do this without the support of the people.
Well, I totally agree with you, that people have confidence in you, and that's why you got 4 million votes. And plus, you are, want to congratulate you that you are the, I guess, one person who has been in a statewide office from Long Island in last decade, maybe. Not decade, actually century.
Well, yeah, there aren't many Long Islanders that get to be in the statewide office, unfortunately.
Right.
The city is a big population center, obviously. Upstate is very big, and very often when they talk about balance, they talk about upstate, downstate, but they usually mean New York City and upstate. So we're on Long Island, people upstate think we're in the city, people in the city think we're upstate. So it's been hard, and I think especially until recently, obviously for the Democratic Party, because Long Island had been so Republican for so long.
Right.
There weren't a lot of Democrats to support. You go back when I was a kid, Gene Nickerson, who was our first Democratic county executive, he ran for governor, he ran for, tried to run for governor, tried to run for U.S. Senator, and in both cases he lost the primaries because Long Island wasn't enough of a base. So, I feel fortunate. I kind of came in an unusual way, but certainly in the past couple elections, one of the reasons why I won is that we do very well in Nassau and Suffolk County. So I always appreciate the fact that the people that know me best on Long Island have had confidence in me, and that is a great reassurance for me.
Well, it's the confidence on both sides, actually, Republican and Democrat. Like you said that you won first time, from the legislature, bipartisan. Right?
Yeah.
So that is a big thing.
I wouldn't have been here without support of some of the Republicans, especially Long Island Republicans. But I've always had a view that there are good people on both sides of the political aisle, and we too often demonize people just because they're not in our own party. There are also bad people on both sides, and I think the reality is we need to. There are always going to be differences, right, between Republicans and Democrats, but it doesn't mean you can't work together. You can't find common ground. And the years I was in the legislature, the Senate was always controlled by the Republicans. So for us to get anything done, we did always have to work together.
Exactly.
And I always say, Raj, as well, having grown up, both of my parents being Republicans, I can't look at someone because they're Republican and think that, by definition, they're not good people. So I've always had a pretty open. And that doesn't mean I don't have strong opinions, because I do, and I'm very proud to be a Democrat and have been all my life since I've been able to vote. And I don't think I would ever be in any other party. I'm sure I wouldn't be, but especially when you see the polarization that goes on now, it's very distressing. It's not. The political environment now is not as conducive as it should be for finding common ground, for coming up with solutions that help everybody. We become too partisan, too polarized, and that's not a good thing.
Especially in Washington.
People over the years said to me, didn't you want to be in Congress? Or, everybody thinks you got to go to Washington. I never had a huge interest in it, but now when I look, I say, thank God I am in Albany. Not that Albany doesn't have its problems, but state service to me has been much more fulfilling in terms of an opportunity to make a difference. When I see what goes on in Washington, what really doesn't go on, right? The gridlock and the stalemate, I wouldn't want to be a part of that.
Right.
And I don't know what it's going to take to. Well, I think I know what it needs to change. We could talk about that later if you want. But right now, I admire people who are willing to do federal service. I think it's a very difficult job right now.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I agree, and especially this environment, not easy.
And it does every day. It seems to get worse, right? And social media doesn't help.
Oh,
that has changed the dynamics
totally.
And the debate, and has really, I think, dummied down the discourse. And I think the fact that people, I think back, someone observed, and I think it's true, and I've been saying this. When I was growing up, you came home, people tend to have dinner together with the family. That doesn't happen much anymore. You put the TV on and you watch the news, and Walter Cronkite or Huntley Brink, whatever. There were 3 stations.
Right.
They all kind of had the same information.
Right.
And you had, newscasters you had a lot of confidence in. And you might have disagreement then about how to solve some of the problems, but you had a common source of information.
Right.
Today, there's no commonality, and instead people tend to select their news source based on the source that most fits their belief and their preconceived notion. So we're not operating from the same basis of information. So that makes it even more complicated, and so people are talking, but they're not meeting in the same place because their facts, quote unquote, are different. So it just makes it so much more difficult. And I think you even look at how few people will read a newspaper now, how fewer newspapers there are. And not that the newspapers aren't biased, because they have their own bias as well. But again, Newsday here on Long Island, the New York Times, I mean, by and large, these are papers with credibility. Again, they may have their biases and not all the reporting is perfect, but it's a credible source of information. But especially the younger generation, they'll go on, they'll go on the phone or the iPad, but they'll pick and choose. How many people will read the editorial? But it's a different time, and I think it's made it more challenging.
One thing I tell you, what I think is, like, as you just mentioned before, whether it's Republican or Democrat, at the end of the day, they're all people.
Absolutely.
They're all human beings.
Yeah.
And if you are nice, then they will see that nice also.
Yeah.
And if you are nice enough, then they will definitely like you, whether you are
whoever
you are. It doesn't matter.
I mean, I think the other reality is people may be enrolled in a party, but people will vote for whoever they believe in. Just because you're in a party, you can vote for it. So, years ago, you used to say, okay, I that person's a Democrat. I know for sure they're going to vote for me. Well, now people are very independent-minded, and I think that's good. And what that requires from those of us who are running for office is we can't leave anybody out.
Right.
And you have to not only talk to the people in your party, but you have to talk to people in the other party. And of course, as you know, Raj, many people now, when they register to vote, they don't register in a party.
Right.
So the unaffiliated voters, again, especially younger voters, they don't like any of the parties. They're often so they're up for grabs, and that's good. I think that forces people running for office to do more outreach, or it should.
Exactly.
It should.
I agree.
And don't take any vote for granted or take anybody for granted.
Totally agree. Young people, especially young people, they have a different mindset, and so I agree with you.
Yeah.
So you have to do more in order to please them, or in order to convince them, rather. You have to earn
people's vote. And their respect and their confidence. Yeah. But that's why it is troubling when a lot of people, because of the way that the political debate is now, many people get turned off, right?
Yeah.
So how many times I hear, during elections, you know what? I don't trust anybody. I don't like anybody. I'm not voting. And that's the worst response. If you're not happy, make sure you're voting. Because there's always a choice, and there's always a better choice. People say, well, lesser of two evils. Well, sometimes that is the case, but there's always a choice, and there's always a choice that's going to be better for you, and you should not just, in fact, it takes the easy way out to say, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to bother. And then you know what? You don't have the right to complain. From my point of view, if you're not going to be part of the process, then don't give me the complaint.
I agree with you. Then why do you want to complain?
And what a privilege that we have in this country to have the opportunity to vote. I mean, people fought and died for that, and yet you see the American participation rates. They're low compared to many of the European countries, or even India. The largest democracy, huge turnout. People have more of a. I mean, they don't necessarily feel that their politicians are any better than ours, right? But they still have a belief in the process and voting, and we need to recapture that in our country.
We just went through a major election in India, 900 million eligible voters, and 69% approximately, voting.
That's great.
Huge. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Actually, so
we may be the oldest democracy here, but India is the largest.
India is the largest,
and the participation rates are something that we should envy.
Huge. It's huge. So we're kind of very happy to have our PM continued for the next 5 years. So many people, most of the people are very happy.
Well, I even find that with many people who immigrate here, certainly from India, but really from so many of the countries as well, they cherish that opportunity to vote when they become citizens.
Absolutely.
In some cases, like if you immigrate from India, you had that tradition before you came here. But others who come from countries where they didn't have the chance to vote, or it was a one-party system, they really understand the importance of being registered and voting. Yeah. And some of us who who grew up here all our lives, we take it for granted. So we have something to learn from others, I think.
Totally agree. Totally agree with you. So that means you started your career in 1986.
In the assembly, yeah, in the state career. Yep.
So that's same time I started my business. So we are the same number of years.
Parallel path. I love it. Parallel
Only thing
path.
you went all the way top, and I'm.
No, you're doing great. Although we should point out to your viewers, right? That sign is going to change.
That sign is going to change. Yes, it's going to be RTI, Raj Technologies Inc. shortly. So
that's a good name.
We're going to change it to Raj Technologies Inc. And after 32 years, we're going to change it. So we're happy to be changing. And, so change is always good.
Great. Yep, so same quality, same professionalism, different name.
Yep, just a different name.
But I'm not going to change my name. I'm sticking with it.
Exactly.
But I'm happy for your success, and it's wonderful that we've shared the same beginnings of the career paths that we've been on, and we're both still at it.
Listen, I'm happy. We're doing fine. I mean, we are thankfully.
Yeah.
Thank God that we're doing, reasonably all right. So
well, technology is the big growth area all across our state. I see it all the time, and it's great you have your roots here on Long Island, because it is a sector of our economy on Long Island that people should not take for granted.
Yeah.
And of course you do work everywhere, not just on Long Island. So, but your success helps this Long Island economy, which has been going very strong. Our unemployment rate is, we just did recently, in 2019, a snapshot of the Long Island economy. Record number of jobs, 1.3 million jobs here in Nassau and Suffolk County. Unemployment rate that continues to go down and has traditionally been lower than the state unemployment rate. So, people often point to New York City, and rightfully so, as a big generator of economic activity. That's true. But outside of the city, the region of the state that contributes significantly to our state's economy and strength is here on Long Island. And that's been true for a long time. It continues to be true. So, we're proud of your success as part of the success here in Nassau and Suffolk County.
Thank you. It takes hard work, as you did. Here also we do different way, but everything is hard work.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Office of State Comptroller. State Comptroller, that many people don't have the idea. I mean, everybody knows that you deal with money.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's a high level information people have. But then you do have a lot of other responsibilities which people don't know.
Right.
So can we talk about that? What is that?
Well, you frame the question beautifully, because I always say I have the best job in state government, but the one that people aren't quite sure what it is that we do, because the name, it's just what you said. People know it's something with money and finance, not quite sure what it is.
Right.
But what's one reason why I really value the chance to serve in this position, because in fact we have a tremendous impact on the operations of state government. I say, we're in some ways we're like the back office operation. So we do the payroll for the state. So if you're one of the 250,000 state workers, you certainly know us every 2 weeks with your paycheck. We approve contracts for the state. So when state agencies are letting a contract, we're the final sign off and approval. So that means we also are in charge of the payments. So if you're a vendor, we're the ones who make sure you get paid. If you're a nonprofit, you're getting a grant from the state, we have to process that. If you're a local government, you're getting money from the state, school district, municipality. So we have a very important responsibility in the affairs of the state government. So that $175 billion state budget, when money is flowing out, we are not always the first place, but we're often the last place that makes sure that the payments are being done properly. And then so within that context, we do contract review, we do audits, ahead of time, pre-audit, post-audit after a payment's made. So that role on contract approval and spending is a very, very big part of what we do. And because we do it well, and it's seamless, most people don't realize that we're involved in it. I always say if you're not getting your payment on time or your paycheck, is delayed, then you're going to know, who we are and what we do. So that's one piece of it. Also, in terms of the accountability agenda, the audits that we do of state agencies, public authorities, local governments, school districts, we monitor the fiscal strength of our localities. We have a regular monitoring of fiscal stress, as we call it, to make sure that no municipality or school district is headed to a financial collapse. We don't want to see that happen. We are the trustee for the state pension fund. So we have 1.1 million New Yorkers who depend on that pension fund for retirement security. So we do the benefit administration part, and we do the investment part to make sure the money is there to pay the pension benefits. We do some other areas. The oil spill fund, we help administer unclaimed funds, getting people's lost money returned to them, kind of the most fun part of what we do. We administer the 529 College Savings Program, the Higher Education Services Corporation. We now have a new program, the ABLE program, which is a savings program for people with disabilities, similar to the 529 College Savings Program. And we obviously comment on state budget, state fiscal practices, issue policy reports on the current issues that are important in the state, healthcare issues, housing affordability, balance of payments with the federal government. So we do a lot.
It seems that
we have about 2,700 employees.
2,700.
And they do a great job. Most all of them are civil service. They're very dedicated public servants. And but we are, as I said, an important part of state government. Sometimes underappreciated in some ways because our work is not always on the front page of the papers, but it's very important work, and I like doing the nuts and bolts work that we do, and because we're viewed as not as partisan in office and we're not involved with the day-to-day political battles. That's not what we were set up to do. Control's office is meant to be independent, take the long-term view. So we're not involved in all the day-to-day battles, but that gives us a chance to take that longer-term view. When we make recommendations, it's not done on a partisan basis. It's really done with a broader view of what will be good for the state. So that's why, to me, it's, as I said, the best job in state government.
I think it's a lot of work, though. It's a lot of things that you do. I mean, it's not. That's why I'm saying that mostly people say, okay, well, they deal with money. That's it.
Right. Exactly.
But then it's really not only money.
Yeah.
So if the state, whenever the budget is approved by the state legislators, right, in the beginning of the year, by April or whatever.
Yep, April 1st.
At that time, April 1st, right? So the budget is approved, and then do you have to take any part in that once it's approved? How does
I mean, if people sometimes think we're involved with the approval, we're not. I mean, that's the legislature, the Senate, and Assembly, and the governor. Right. So what happens is the governor presents the budget at the beginning of the year, because our fiscal year starts April 1st, as we just said. We do a comment on the proposal, but then it's up to the governor and legislature to negotiate it. We don't have a vote in that. When they do the final approval, then we're the ones who make sure the money is spent in the right way. So we do the payments, we do the grants, but then we also do the audits and the follow-up to make sure that the money is not being spent inappropriately, inefficiently, or, God forbid, in the worst cases, being stolen by people. And that, unfortunately, that happens too often, where we find people either in government or could be somebody managing a nonprofit and getting state money, and they do something that's wrong. So we're the ones that do the follow-up once the governor and the legislature approve the budget.
So when you do the audits, you do an audit for any agency or any a semi-state or whatever, and then you give a report. Yeah. Now, it's not your responsibility to enforce it, whatever your recommendations are.
Well, that's an important question. That's a very important question. We make recommendations, whether it's a state agency or a local government. Right. And the entity we audit is obligated to give us a response. But in fact, we can't enforce the recommendations. That's one of the challenges of the work that we do, because often an agency or a government, local government, will say, okay, we agree with most of what you're saying, and we'll implement corrective action. But there are some cases where they dismiss it or they ignore it.
And
right. what the only enforcement we have really is the sunlight, the light of day, for the press and for the public to say, hey, wait a minute, the controller made these recommendations, why aren't you implementing them? The other thing we can do, Raj, is we can do a follow-up audit where we can again go in and say, well, we made these 5 recommendations, you know, and then gauge whether or not they've been implemented. But at the end of the day, we can't compel anybody that we audit to do what we recommend.
So you can do audit anytime you want, or how, I mean, is
well,
it like a scheduled thing, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, so we have pretty broad audit authority, right. But you know, there are thousands of entities that exactly. You could audit. You know, saying, local governments alone on Long Island right. can keep us busy. We don't have unlimited resources.
Right.
So it's a combination. It is, as you suggest, in some cases, a schedule, particularly with school districts. About every 5 years, we audit every school district in BOCES in the state. Because you remember a number of years ago on Long Island, you had $11 million was stolen in the Roslyn district.
Absolutely.
A lot of money in public education. I believe in it. I'm a product of public schools, but that is done on a schedule. It varies then with other local governments or with state agencies. So we have an audit team. We have a state audit team based in Albany and New York City, right. And then we have a local government audit team, and they're based all around the state. We have regional offices, including here on Long Island and Hubbard. So they come up with their audit plans based on their knowledge, their sense of priority. They read the papers, you know. They get tips. Sometimes we get a call or an email or a letter from a taxpayer or from a state worker or you know, somebody working in local government, and they'll say, you know, there's something that's not quite right. You really need to take a look at it.
So that also can trigger.
Oh, it very often does.
Okay.
So you know, each audit division has their own audit plan that's updated a couple of times of the year, you know, depending on whatever the priority is. And I may make recommendations, and every now and then they will take my recommendation on, you know, because I'm out there a lot, so I hear things where people want us to look. So it's a combination of a schedule, of our auditors' sense of priority and where they need to go, and also what we hear from the public, be it the press, from public officials, from taxpayers. There are many different sources, and then, you know, the management of each audit division has to make a judgment as to which audits to do when. But you know, we do you know, roughly close to 200 audits of state agencies and public authorities a year, and probably between 350, 400 local government audits a year. So it's a lot. And then, of course, we have budget reviews, which are different than audits that we do for certain municipalities. We just had recently one for Long Beach, Glen Cove here in Long Island. Because they've had some fiscal issues, you know. So there's a lot of work that's done by those audit divisions. Yeah.
So any recommendation you make, what can that be referred to an attorney general or state attorney? That kind of thing,
well, in the case of
they look at it themselves and they decide.
If there's criminality, yes. Then you know, so we can't prosecute anybody.
Right.
But if we find somebody stealing or something that's inappropriate, where it could be a crime, we can refer it. Now, you're absolutely right. The Attorney General is often where we will go,
right.
And by our referral, that gives the Attorney General criminal jurisdiction. Right. We can also refer, they already have criminal jurisdiction, to local district attorneys, and we do that. We have a great relationship here on Long Island with Madeline Singer's office and Tim Sini's office in Nassau and Suffolk counties. The U.S. attorneys, we've done some cases with the U.S. attorneys' offices. State police, FBI, I mean, you go down the list. So we have the ability to refer it out, and then the prosecutors can do their work. And they often rely on what we presented them to build their cases. But you know, most of the audits that we do and the recommendations don't involve criminality. Most of it really is more about efficiency. But I must tell you, with our collaboration with law enforcement over the past 5 or 6 years, our work has resulted in about 190 arrests and over $54 million in restitution that we've gotten money back from money that's been stolen.
Wow, wow, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. That work unfortunately never ends.
No, Well, as long as they are human beings, people are working.
That's what I say. Well, and people say, well, how come? I said, well, you know, is there more of it now than was before? I don't know if there's more, but I think everybody's more focused on public corruption.
Right.
We've expanded our investigations division. Certainly the prosecutors are on it. It's been a tougher economic time. Are people tempted? But, you know, you go back all of history, greed and people trying to get away with something. That we're probably never going to be without that, unfortunately. But that's why you need an office like ours to be part of that watchdog role. Absolutely. You know, we're not the only ones doing it, but we're an important part of it.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think so. Because, you know, it's public money, right? So public money has to be
absolutely
watched for and spent appropriately.
And that's why, Raj, and I say to your viewers, if there's something you think is not right somewhere, you know, be in touch with our office. We want to hear about it.
Who do they contact?
Well, they can, well, the website, everything's done by website, right? They can go on the website, and there's certainly a number there if they want to report fraud. Our main number is 518-474-3506. They can call that number, and someone will connect them with our investigators and fraud division. And also, if they go to the website, they can also email us a complaint. We take it any which way, and just whatever your search engine is, just put in New York State Comptroller. It'll bring you right to the website, and then you could find. There's a lot of information. All our reports are there. All the audits are there. Yeah. If you want to look at an audit of your local school district or village or whatever it may be, you could find that. If you're a member of the pension system, we have a lot of information there about benefits, about how we invest the money. And some of the programs that we have. So I do encourage your viewers to go to our website.
Actually, you know, it's very important because, you know, that can generate the business for the viewers actually, because, you know, based on your recommendation, like if the agency is implementing it, there may be something you can help them with. And
people can learn. They see what's happening in one community. And also on that website, they can search for their unclaimed funds right online.
See, that's what I want
important.
To talk to you. Yes. Now, define unclaimed funds.
Yeah, I mean, it's lost money. It's very often it's an old bank account or a financial account of some kind. And very often people move and they haven't updated their contact information. So under the law, after a certain period of time, depending on the account, you know, stock account or uncashed health insurance check or security deposit for utility, the account is declared dormant. It's turned over to the state, and we have to keep the account in safekeeping until we find the person or the person finds us. So believe it or not, Raj, we have accounts valued now at about $15 billion, billion with a B.
Unclaimed funds?
Unclaimed funds.
Can you give me some?
Well, you know, if you're in the system, we can, absolutely. The legislature appropriates most of that money, but we leave enough in reserve. Last year we returned about $460 million. So over $1 million a day is returned to people.
Wow.
And that's why I say people may not realize, people are always surprised when they go and they search and they find their name. And we make it easy for you to search online, apply online. There's also an 800 number you could call if you need to talk to somebody. So it's money or an account in the name of an individual, name of a business, a nonprofit, a union, I mean a charity, a church, a synagogue, a mosque. There's so many different ways. And some of these accounts go back to the 1940s. So you may have a deceased relative, you know, a parent, a grandparent, their name may be in there. We need more documentation for us to return that money to you, but many of these accounts, and frankly some of them will probably never be claimed, but technically if everybody came out of the woodwork tomorrow and claimed this money, we'd be responsible for it. But we do a lot of outreach, and you know, doing the online search has really increased the volume of the amount of money we can return. But as much as we return, more money comes in.
More money comes in,
comes in, because there's always accounts that become dormant. Gift cards is now a new source of, not a cash gift card like you go to a restaurant, but if you get a gift card and you register it, you know, with some of the stores, if the gift card is lost or is not used, that also gets turned over to us as unclaimed funds. But
From
if you
the
have
stores.
Yeah, but if you have your registration number, then we could, you know, reimburse you for that. So as much as we return, we keep having more money come in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
You know. So it's anybody, you know, who can go on your website and they do a search on their name or whatever name entity they can.
And family and friends,
find
even deceased relatives, businesses, absolutely. Right. I always say when you can't go to sleep at 2 in the morning, don't go on those bad websites. Go to the controller's website, put your name and put your friend's name, and you become very popular. Because, you know, there are so many people that have these accounts and lost money that don't realize it.
Wow.
They just don't realize it.
Yeah, people, I guess, yeah. I mean, they forget, or
they forget. I could say if they move, I had the situation. I moved, and I had a little savings account that I didn't use very much, but I got a call from the bank. They were about to turn the money over to the controls office. It would have been very embarrassing if one of my accounts got turned, because I didn't use it very often, and I didn't update my address, but my phone number hadn't changed because I moved within the same general area, so they were able to find me. But had they not found me, I would have been trouble. So I always say to people, if you move, update the contact information at the bank, your financial institution, and if you have an account, show activity. If an account is dormant and they can't find you, that's how it gets turned over. But if you make sure there's activity, a couple times a year, then they know that you're still around and they won't turn it over to the state.
How long it is? 2 years? What is it?
On the dormancy, it varies. It's not common. It depends on what kind of account it is.
Depends on, right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned if you get a gift card from the store. I mean, how long?
I forgot the dormancy. I think it's like 4 or 5 years, but it's the cards that are registered, right? So if you just get a cash and you don't have it registered, so that's why I say to people, if you get one of those cards, they'll often tell you to register it. So that way, if you lose it or you forget about it, you'll be able to claim it on the registration number. Yeah.
So that's a lot of money, though. $5 billion.
15.
$15 billion.
15. A lot of money.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
It's a lot. Even though you return $1 million a day or more than $1 million a day, still that's a lot of money coming in.
Yeah, because more money's coming in.
More money is coming in, right? Yeah. And that money, obviously, you invest in some place, and obviously. I don't know
it was the legislature appropriates every year. They leave enough for us based on historic trends, so that we have more than enough to pay what's returned.
Right.
But people sometimes say, "Well, is all that money sitting there, and can we use it for X, Y, Z purposes?" But as I said, the legislature and the governor take care of that money, so we just keep enough in reserve to return when people come to us.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Great.
Please stay with us. Welcome back to Interviews That Matter. I'm your host, Raj Mehta. We are having a wonderful conversation with the New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli. Sir, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Raj.
Yeah. So let's talk about now the retirement fund that you manage. And I know that last year's return was 5.2%, which is good in this market. And
it was very tough. December was a very down month, and it pulled everybody's numbers down that were invested in the market. Fortunately, January, February, March were much better, so we did end up with a positive 5.23%, a little lower than our long-term goal, which is 7%. And the past 2 years, we were over 11%. But I always say to people, our long-term goal is 7%. It doesn't mean that every year we're going to hit it. It'd be nice if we hit it. But some years we're going to be higher. Some years we're going to be lower. But we're invested for the long term. And the fund grew. A year ago, we were about 207 billion. Now we're 210 billion. So the fund is still growing. Keep in mind, every month, because we have many retirees that we're supporting through the fund, we pay out $1 billion in benefits every month. So we paid out about 12 billion. We still were able to grow the fund by 3 billion. So New York, I'm very proud to say, is one of only 4 state pension plans that is over 90% funded.
Wow.
And many states, as you know from the papers, are significantly underfunded. And that brings down the financial numbers for the entire state. We don't have that problem here in New York. But our first obligation, Raj, is to the men and women who are in the retirement system. So when we're making our investments, it's with them in mind.
So they get returned back, the whatever percentage you say.
Well, we have a defined benefit plan. So they get a pension based on their years of service and their salary. And there's a calculation. But there's a guaranteed formula. So if we go up or down, it doesn't affect the payout.
So it's very good, though. I mean, whatever office is doing great. 7% target.
I mean, I think moving forward, we're going to be a little more conservative. We always consult with our actuary because I think it's going to be a lower return environment. So when I started, we were at 8% return goal, went to 7.5, then to 7. What it will be next, I'm not sure, but it'll be below 7. I think being more conservative will position us well. The problem is when you assume you're going to earn less money, it does with your calculations drive up your costs. So we always have to balance, being conservative and appropriate, but also recognizing that the rates we charge local governments, the state taxpayers, has an impact as well. So it's always a balancing act. But I think we've continually hit the right balance on all of that. And I should point out, Roger, we're not just investing in the stock market. So, while the bulk of our investments are tied to the performance of the public equity markets, we have a lot of money in fixed income, which doesn't give a big return these days because the rates are so low, but that's the safest place to put money, and that's important for a pension fund. And we also have money in what are called the alternatives, in real estate and private equity. We don't have a lot in hedge funds, and we've been decreasing that. Infrastructure, real assets, so we have a diversified portfolio, and we think that's a strength.
So is it like controller's office determining, or you have like advisors and consultants?
Yeah. So we have our own investment staff of professionals, and we have a chief investment officer. But then, yes, we have advisors, consultants. And in the case of the alternatives, because we don't have a huge staff, we give them a mandate of an allocation of money and goals and objectives, and we expect them to get a good return. If they don't, we go on to somebody else. With the public equities, much of that we do invest and manage in-house, because that's a low-cost way for us to do that investment. There's always criticism of the fees that sometimes you pay to investment managers. So with the public equity side, which is the bulk of our investments, we do that in-house with low cost. The alternatives, which are important to us because we don't want everything correlated to the public markets. When the stock market is good, everybody says, how come you don't have more money in the stock market? When the stock market crashed in 08 and 09, everybody said, how come you have so much money in the stock market? You can't win, right? And it's easy to look backward. But that's why we can have up to 25% of our portfolio in those alternatives, because they are not correlated to the ups and downs of the stock market. And in fact, this past year, we had very strong returns in private equity and in real estate, those areas of the alternatives. So there's a lot of pieces moving with the investments, but it's our own staff, it's our consultants, it's the advisors who we also then have money, and we have an investment advisory committee of independent professionals who guide our staff. We have a real estate advisory committee that actually votes on our real estate investment transactions before I approve them. So there are a lot of eyes and ears. In New York, we have what's called a sole fiduciary model, so I'm in effect the trustee for the system rather than a board. But there are many people think it means that just one person's doing all this. Believe me, that's not the case. We have a very professional, sophisticated process. I just do my part to make sure that appropriate policies and procedures are being followed. So
I agree. I mean, it's a huge fund, so obviously.
Yeah, well, 210 billion, we're the third largest public pension fund in the country.
Exactly. So it's
one of the biggest in the world.
A lot of money.
And a lot of people depend on it. I mentioned 1.1 million New Yorkers and their families are, well, in the private sector, defined benefit pensions are not as common as they used to be. I think that issue of retirement security, people not having adequate resources for their golden years, that's a big issue that we don't really address in this country very well. I wish that would be what they were talking about in Washington rather than some of the other nonsense they get caught up in. Because if people don't have adequate savings or a pension, most people can't just live on Social Security. So where are they going to go? Well, they'll probably end up on some kind of assistance. So it's going to cost us money in the long run, which is why I'm such a strong defender of our defined benefit pension in New York, because it's funded well, it works well, we manage it right. That's an important part of retirement security. I wish more people had it, but for those that have it in the public system, we're going to protect it.
So what percentage of the fund, total fund, do you invest in ventures? Like, for example, like companies or venture, what are you like a new invention? Well, not a big percentage, because venture, early stage, seed, all those iterations is riskier. And as a pension fund, we take some risk, obviously. I've actually been encouraging that we do a little more on the venture side, because I think there's some great opportunities there. Yes, there are risks, and so some of that might not work out, but if you get a winner on the venture side, you get a real
real big winner, and we've had some of that as well.
Exactly.
So where we do probably the most venture is with what we call our in-state private equity investment program.
Okay.
That's a private equity program that's geared to growing jobs in New York State and opportunities in New York State. So what we do with that program now, it's about, I think, 1.3 billion. It's not just venture or early stage, but that is a component of it, where we have a network of about 18 investment managers who have an allocation from us of money, and we ask them to seek opportunities for startups that will commit to growing the business and the jobs in New York State. That's the only commitment.
Okay.
So that program has been successful. We've gotten good returns, and it's not geographic specific. So if you're a startup in New York City, Long Island, in upstate New York, that would be the program where we do most of our venture investing. And I like the fact that it's tailored to New York. And certainly we've seen the growth of the tech, you've seen it firsthand, the tech center growth in New York City, even to an extent here on Long Island. We've tried to encourage tech investments, you know, Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, different parts of the state as well, the capital region. And as I said, we've had some success with the program, and a lot of the obviously more recent venture investments that we've made, it's going to take a few years to see what the return will be.
Yeah, it does take time.
It takes time.
Startup, you know, like for example, you said that you mentioned that startup, right? You invest in startup also.
Yeah.
And you said there are 18 investment
managers
right. who kind of
they source it. Yeah, they source it and they do the due diligence.
So anyone who has a startup and startup idea or startup, whatever it is, right? Obviously, they don't have any track record.
Right.
And it's really depend. They have to contact one of those 18.
Yeah, they can come through our office, and we'll, depending, because some of the managers do have a geographic focus. Some of them have a sector or industry focus.
Okay.
But if those who are interested contact us, we'll then put you in touch with the manager that makes the most sense to evaluate your proposal. But you're right. I mean, lack of track record is a big issue.
It's a big issue. It's a big issue, right? But you know,
but,
I mean, obviously.
But the startup may not have a track record, but the person doing it or the team doing it, they may have a track record, because very often a startup comes from someone who had success in another venture, and they want to go out on their own and start their own. So that's the kind of information we look at.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, like otherwise, see Uber and look at this Airbnb. I mean, who knew that they were going to be this big, right?
Right.
You know, so obviously, you know, you never know. And
yeah.
This is. I'm telling you, people. I mean, people have ideas. It's amazing. Like, you know, my daughter, she has her own startup, right? So she is. There is a in the city. What they do is, you know, like restaurants. You know, restaurants and all these places, right? They are not used in certain time of the day.
Yeah.
They rent out to these startup people.
Oh.
Low rent.
Oh, okay.
You know, monthly rent, like just $100 monthly or $150. They can have
to use the workspace.
Chair and workspace.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that idea.
Yeah.
Think about it now.
Yeah.
It's win-win for everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
So these are the ideas that all these young people are getting it.
Right.
And they definitely need encouragement from, you know, from the state or from somewhere, right?
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for any viewers, be in touch with our office. Again, they could call the main number, 518-474-3506.
Well,
they can, well, I'll say the number again, 518-474-3506. For the in-state program, they can ask for Frank McAvoy.
Okay, Frank
McAvoy. He's our point person in our office, and he would then put them in touch with the investment opportunity that makes the most sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll definitely find and we'll put it on the for people.
Great.
Actually.
Great.
Yeah. But I think, you know, it definitely needs a lot of, you know, I mean, it's a good thing that you are encouraging. And do you have any special any consideration for women and minority-owned businesses?
Oh, sure.
Something like that.
Yeah. We also have a small business lending program with the New York Business Development Corporation, NYBDC.
Okay.
And that's an opportunity, and that's a loan program. The in-state program is an equity program. The NYBDC program is a loan program for equipment, real property, working capital. That has a goal of 25% women and minority opportunities, and the program exceeds it. It's over 30% the last time I looked. So that program, and then of course we're a state agency, so we procure services, and we have also women and minority goals for our controller office procurements. And again, we exceed our goals. Again, we were over 30% last year. So yes, there are opportunities, and certainly we do support New York State's. I think our state has some of the most ambitious goals for women and minority investing. And then I should mention too, on the investment side, we have it's not tied to goals, but we have an emerging manager, an MWB program to work with investment professionals. So there are women-owned and firms of color who are investment managers, and they can work with our team, and we've been very proud of the fact. I think now we're up to 17. Last numbers I saw, I think, was $17 billion of pension fund money that is managed by women and minority investment professionals. So there are many different ways that we try to be supportive of diversity in every way and expanding opportunity in every way.
So when somebody calls Frank, Frank McCall.
On the in-state program,
the in-state program, right? So in-state program, and it's important for them to say, because most of the viewers are from the minority community, right? So it's important for them to mention that they're like woman or minority.
They could, although in the in-state program, there's not an MW. It's not an MWB program per se. On that one, the real requirement is that you have a good plan, and you're going to do it in New York.
And
it's not an that's not an MWB program.
Oh, okay.
But if they do call and they mention it to Frank, he would put them in touch with the other investment people that work on the emerging manager and MWB program.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Well,
I know it gets complicated because we have different programs that do different things. But
listen, that's the job of people who find out, right? I mean, everything is out there, and if you don't, have a knowledge, then you lose.
And we're very transparent. I should also say, Rush, to your viewers, a lot of the information about these programs as a first step to navigating it is on our website.
Exactly.
So if you're an investment person, you're looking for investment, go to the pension fund site, and the programs that I mentioned are there.
Right.
And then the contact information is there as well.
Is there too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the key. Knowing knowledge is important, right? That's
knowledge is power, right?
That's what we are giving here today, right?
Exactly right.
Exactly right. Giving knowledge to the people, and this is my public service.
Yeah.
Really, all these shows that I've been doing for 6 years.
Yeah.
It's really providing knowledge to the people.
Yeah.
And then they do whatever they have to do.
It's a very important service.
That's what I do.
Although one day I want to see you at one of the late night shows. Step it up.
And a comedian, maybe as a comedian.
You're a good interviewer. I don't know about as a comedian, but you're a good interviewer.
Thank you so much. Thanks for a compliment. I mean, it means a lot, and it's on-the-job training, by the way. I never did before this.
Really?
In my life. No, it's on-the-job training.
Well, you're very natural.
So, that's all it is. Basically. It just happened.
Yeah.
So, let me talk about now a sensitive issue of 2020 election, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, 2020 election is coming in this, and
I feel like we're in the middle of it sometimes. All these candidates.
It's always new candidates popping up all the time, right?
Right.
So we're talking about like a crowded Democratic primary polled on 24 people, I think.
I think it's up to 24 now.
Yeah, right. So the latest one is Mayor de Blasio. The latest one is him joining in there.
Yep.
And everybody wants to try to, their luck, basically. Like you never know who's going to come up and who's going to be. Like today you have this guy on top, and then it can change. Like
that's
in
politics.
2016, it was Republican that way. Right?
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, it was amazing, right?
Yeah.
So who do you think on a Democratic side has the potential to have fight with the President Trump, on the Republican side?
Yeah. Well, I think the good news is we have a number of really good people that have come forward.
Right.
I think the bad news is we have a number of really good people that come forward. I worry that the party gets divided, and I know it's still very early and plenty of time for this all to work out, but Donald Trump's election so traumatized our political system. I guess in a good way, anybody feels they could be president, which I guess we always said, but I don't know if we quite thought it would turn out this way. I think there are a number of Democratic, and obviously I'm a Democrat and I'm going to be supporting the Democratic candidate, and think it's important that that Trump be defeated. I do think Joe Biden probably has the best shot today. I mean, that could change.
Right.
He's liked by a broad range of people in the party. He's got a proven track record. I think he can unify the party. But we have many talented people. Senator Harris is getting a lot of attention.
Right.
Mayor Pete, you know,
Buttigieg.
moving up. You know, Buttigieg from.
Right.
So we have, as you mentioned, from New York, we have Mayor de Blasio and Senator Gillibrand. You know, we have to mention them.
Right.
Elizabeth Warren has a following. I mean, I'm not going to remember all the names of everybody out there, but you have a number of people who are credible. We'll see how they do when the caucuses and the primaries start. Obviously, some of them will not go too far if they don't get support early.
Right.
But you know, I haven't made a formal endorsement yet, but I do hope. When I speak to Democratic audiences, I say what we need to have is unity. Don't get so. Well, I didn't mention Bernie Sanders. Obviously, has a big support too. Don't get so locked to your candidate that you find so much wrong with the other candidates, because we need to come together. And sometimes Democrats spend too much time fighting with each other and become very divisive. Because any Democrat that thinks Trump is going to be easy to beat is mistaken.
I think, you know, yeah, I mean, that's you cannot take it for granted.
We learned that the hard way in 2016. You can't take anything for granted.
Anything for granted.
If the economy continues to do well, I mean, for me, his antics and everything is enough disqualification right there.
Right.
But you know, obviously, people voted for him once before. Many of those who voted for him before would still vote for him.
Exactly.
You know, it's turnout has to be high among Democrats. I think that's going to be key. And we can't leave anybody out of the conversation. I think one of the problems that happened in 2016 is that the Democratic Party ignored certain states and certain key neighborhoods in those states, and people, even who had voted for Obama, ended up voting for Trump.
Right.
You know, they felt left out of the Democratic conversation. We can't let that happen again.
Yeah, I think, you know, past mistakes, you know, people probably, hopefully they'll correct it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump, we have to keep in mind, Trump did not win the popular vote. You know? So, I mean, I think Senator Clinton, you know, if we had a more, you know, pure democratic process without the Electoral College, he obviously would have been the president. But that our system is a little different. It's not directly electing the president. People think that we are, but you're not. So Trump was able to win with a minority of vote because he had won in those key states that people didn't expect would be in play, in the Midwest, you know, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio. I mean, you know, and probably in 2020, the race will probably come down to those same states.
You know what? That's why I've been seeing that. You know, there are the same states who really decide who the president will be.
Yeah. You kind of know what California and New York will do, and you kind of know what the South will do, and maybe some of the states in the West will go back and forth. But it's going to come down to the Rust Belt states.
Exactly.
Again. Yeah.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like only these states decides, you know, who the president will be.
If you live in those states, you feel a little extra power, and you have it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So right now you see that there are a lot of, you know, many candidates who are very qualified, which is obviously they're there, so they have to be qualified.
Well, you know. They should be, right?
They should be. They should be.
They have different backgrounds. You know, I hope people don't get drowned out. I mean, you got, you know, a guy like Castro, you know, from Texas, who I wish he would get a little more attention, because I think he's a pretty bright guy. You know, we'll see. I mean, I just hope, right? Say it again. Julian Castro.
Julian Castro.
Yeah. Beto O'Rourke is the other fellow from Texas. Right. He's gotten a fair amount of attention.
Right.
So we'll see. Look, I want to make sure the Democrats are unified, and the Democrats are victorious, and I hope there's a chance to win the Senate as well. I'm not sure what the numbers are there. I think it's been a big improvement to have Nancy Pelosi as Speaker and the Democrats with the House of Representatives. We need some, you know, balance, especially with, you know, a president like Trump, who, I mean, he's nominally Republican, but in many ways he's really his own party, right? He's really his own agenda. Not too different from what's happening in many other countries, by the way. You know, there's been this, you know, populist wave, you know, and I think you could put Trump in that category as well.
Yeah, no, I think so. Wave is there, so people are like becoming more and more, you know, like kind of conservative, you know.
Angry.
You know, like angry, right.
Conservative.
Angry, right, yeah.
You know, feeling threatened by things, and then, you know, someone like Trump feeds on that. Not in a constructive way, from my point of view, but when you see this phenomena happening you know, in so many places. You know, Brexit was the start of it, right? And that's still disrupting Italy, Hungary. You know, you go down the list of all the, you know, of all these.
Venezuela, Brazil.
Oh, Venezuela's a whole from another side, you know. But it's you know, there's a lot happening out there.
So that brings me to the subject of immigration. Yes. Obviously, you know, we have a huge issue of immigration here, and you know, President Trump had recently put out proposal for skill-based, you know, entry for the people, and the south border. We have got so many people want to come here, and obviously, you know, I mean, they want to live better. The whole goal for the whole human, everybody is to live better, right? You know, for the family and for themselves. But at the same time, it's a big issue for people here in U.S. What are your views on that?
You know, my reaction on the skill base is that my grandparents wouldn't have been allowed in. You know, my grandparents, you know, were poor people from Italy. They didn't have anything, they didn't have education. They didn't have any particular skills. They had hopes and dreams, you know. So I would not have liked to have thought that they would have been turned away because they didn't speak English and they didn't have any training or education. So I kind of rebel against that notion. I had the chance, I don't know if you knew, in April to be part of a delegation that went to Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala to see the migration issue from the source, you know, and to get a sense. And it's, Raj, you touched on, people are looking for a better life, but in some ways it's even more it's not just economic opportunity, that's part of it, but the conditions in those countries, the violence, the gang issue, people being extorted money if they have a decent job or a business, being threatened, you know, with kidnapping, people being killed. You know, many of them are escaping literally for their lives. So this notion that we can just stop them without addressing the conditions, you know, back home. And so another part of what Trump was talking about was cutting the aid that we give to the Northern Triangle countries of Central America. We visited some programs. I traveled with Monsignor Sullivan from Catholic Charities of New York and Stu Applebaum from the Retail Workers Union, and we saw programs firsthand that were giving youth life skills to prepare them for the formal economy, giving them opportunities and a vision separate from joining a gang. And many of those programs that we saw were being funded by U.S. aid through the USAID program. And so if they would be cut back, they would either have to have fewer services, provide less opportunity, or go out of business. That to me is wrong. And we went to a migrant center where migrants who were turned away, either the Mexican border or the U.S. border, were coming back. And the workers who do marvelous work under difficult circumstances, they said at least 40% of the people who are being sent back, they're going to go again because the conditions are so horrendous where they are in their home countries that they can't stay. So it's sad. So I think we obviously need to have a thorough reform and update of our immigration policy and have a path to citizenship. But I think in the short term, in terms of the southern border, we need to be more supportive of programs and opportunities that could keep people in Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. They'd rather stay where their family is and where but they feel they can't. So I think a smarter policy would be to work. And I know it's a challenge because some of the governments there are not in the best of shape, they're weak, corruption, so on. But there are programs and there are organizations that we can partner with to hopefully have fewer people feeling that they have no choice other than to come to the U.S. The other piece I think we have to recognize is that immigration has been a huge plus for our state, for our nation. We do reports on the contributions of immigrants, and the economic contributions are significant. The presence in the workforce is significant. Even look here on Long Island, we would have had a net loss in population over the past few years were it not for the immigrants that have come here. And in many parts, when I travel upstate, many of the communities that are being revitalized, you know, we think of immigration in New York City, but it's not just New York City. It's because of the immigrants moving into communities. And so, you know, New York City New York State, we would be nowhere really without immigration.
Yep.
And I think, so we need to recognize immigration is not a negative. It's been a very strong net plus, just looking at the numbers, let alone in terms of you know, quality of life and the advantages that come from having a diverse community. But economically, immigration has been the fuel that's kept the New York economy so strong, and by extension the U.S. economy. So this demonizing of immigrants and, you know, going after them the way we do with the rhetoric, it's wrong, it's inappropriate, it is counter to our traditions. So I could go on my soapbox longer, but that's how I feel about it.
You know, I tell you one thing, it's very sad in the many different countries in the world that this situation is so bad, and we are here so damn lucky.
Yes.
And we still complain.
And we still complain.
You know, so that's the thing. That's
Yeah.
why many times I tell people, I said, listen,
Yeah.
I mean, what are you complaining?
Right.
Look at this somewhere else. I mean,
Right.
You know, that's sad.
It's what I said when I came back from visiting those countries in Central America. I said, what would you feel? I said, well, first of all, I said, you know, thank God I live here.
Exactly.
You know, the problems we deal with pale in comparison to what they, I mean, we met with a woman who couldn't go visit her son because she lives in one neighborhood that's controlled by one gang, and if she goes into the where he lives because it's controlled by another gang, she'd be followed, she'd be suspicious, she'd be threatened. I mean, you know, we don't live anywhere near with that. So
Agree.
yeah.
Yep. Now let me come back to your, you know, like you work hard, we know that, and your working hours must be from morning 6 until night, whatever
It can
time
be,
you
yeah,
sleep.
yeah.
What, you know, like you attend a lot of events,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to attend a lot of events
Yeah.
on top of your whatever
Yeah.
Albany trip, this and that. What do you do for fun?
Well, my friends would tell you I don't do much for fun, but I do like to read.
Okay.
You know, I don't read as much as I would like for pleasure, but someone gave me the that 1,000-page Churchill biography that just came out, and I've cracked into that. Normally, I don't tackle a 1,000-page book, but I love reading biographies, especially of, you know, political figures, and I have not done a lot of reading on Churchill, and I don't mind an escapist movie every now and then, you know, and of
okay.
course, dinner with family and friends is always, you know, a pleasure. But I don't have any. I wish I could tell you I had some very interesting hobby, but I don't. Public service has been my life, and it's what I love. And you know, when you work at something that you love,
Right.
it's a no-brainer, really. You know, you just do it. You know, every now and then you need to disengage just to clear your head a little bit.
Right.
But that's what reading or a movie or, you know, an evening with friends does for me.
What kind of food do you like? I mean, you're liking and
Well, you'd be.
like
I know you won't be
everything?
surprised when I say I like Italian food a great deal, having grown up on it. But I'm pretty eclectic in my eating. And that's another great advantage of being a New Yorker. We have exposure to so many different ethnic cuisines. You know, it's really remarkable.
Right.
But
New York is.
it's wonderful. So I don't really. I can't say. I mean, Italian's probably my favorite. So if I could do a plug for my people, I will. But I think Italian is most everybody's favorite anyway.
Right.
But I love all cuisines. I mean, there's certain. The young people will be disappointed here. I'm not a big sushi eater, but you know, but I like just about everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any last message for the community, Indian community? I mean, you know.
Well, just appreciation. You know, it's been a privilege for me over many years to have so many friends in the Indian community. You being certainly one of them, and here on Long Island. The economic success of the Indian community is clear. I admire the democratic traditions that are valued, the importance of education. You know, in certainly the Indian American families that I know, making sure the children get a good education.
Family values.
Very important, and family values supporting it, and you know, that's not only in the Indian American community, but it's strong in the Indian American community, and it should be you know, universally. Embraced, and the cultural enrichment for our community. You know, we talk about the Diwali celebrations that you've been a part of, and so many other wonderful celebrations. You know, I just appreciate the friendships that I've had on a personal level, on a community level, and very proud of your success and that you keep your roots here on Long Island. You know, this is a great part of our state. And you know, we need to celebrate the fact that, you know, upstate is beautiful. New York City's got a lot going on, you know, but we have great business and community leaders like you, Raj, right here on Long Island, and you know, we are a big contributor to the success of New York State, right here in Nassau and Suffolk County.
Totally agree. 20% of the revenues, state revenue.
Yeah.
You know, at least 20.
Yeah.
I thought it was that this figure was a little old.
Yeah.
But, you know, at least 20%.
Yeah.
Long Island contributes to this.
Very significant. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time and giving
Raj.
us information about your office and yourself and everything. So really appreciate your time.
And good luck with Raj Technologies.
Oh, thank you very much.
And stay well. And it's just always a privilege to be with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. That's again rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/Infosys International. That's again youtube.com/Infosys International. Hopefully we'll change that Infosys International channel to Raj Tech NY. Until next time, have a great week.